Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. Today we're going to get maybe scientific, helpful. We're going to talk about psycho stuff, psychoanalyst. Well, anyway, we're with Elizabeth Cashman, Greenburg, over here. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Now, what do you do?
So I'm technically a therapist. Some people call it a psychotherapist. So I'm trained to help people solve problems.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I have a master's in social work, and I have licensing so that I can be reimbursed by insurance companies.
And where do you work out of?
Right now I'm at West Bay Psychiatric
Which
Services.
is where?
That's in Warwick.
West Bay.
Yes.
But you're from here. You're from the
I'm
Providence
from
area.
Providence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what got you into this business? What got you into the psychotherapy?
That's a great question. We all think about what we want to do. When I was young, maybe teenage years, and I thought about, wouldn't it be great to get paid for something that actually helped people?
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then I kind of fine-tuned it. I was a musician, pianist, and I have a bachelor's in music education, so I'm technically certified to teach music, but my love was really to play the piano.
Right.
So then I had some more time to let everything marinate, and I kind of said, look, I'm gonna go for this. So, you either become a psychologist or a social worker. You can get an MD and be a psychiatrist, but I was really interested in, getting moving with my career. So I chose MSW.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long you been doing it?
Well, let's see. High school was 86. Now
Where'd you go to high school?
So I came from California. I was there
Originally.
for a few years.
Yep.
Moved here when I was about 16 and went to Bayview.
Where in California are you from?
Santa Monica. Well, I'm from Providence. I just lived in California.
Oh.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
I've been to Santa Monica.
Have you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's
many
popular.
times. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The beach, Santa Monica, the boardwalk there.
Yeah.
Santa
Oh,
Monica
yeah.
boardwalk.
And then Venice Beach is right there.
Yes.
Yep. And then if you go the other way, you get Malibu.
Yes. My grandfather lived in Newport Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on Lido Sod, which is a little island.
Very nice.
A causeway over to the little island.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world out there.
It sure is. It sure is. A lot of money out there.
So, I forgot to mention, one of the things that really spurred my interest was I worked at Meeting Street School for a while. So that allowed me to work with kids with special needs, right? So I'm helping the other teachers, and I'm seeing all these kids who have, very complicated disabilities.
Right.
And I became really interested in the families and the parents of the kids who have to manage all of that. So that also, solidified my decision to work with people to help them.
Now, as a result, do you psychoanalyze everybody you run into?
I'm not going to tell you that. That would be terrible. No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
But do you have to catch yourself sometimes?
Well, I think some things just come sort of naturally.
Right.
I mean, some basic things, like you can tell when someone's nervous or maybe someone's sad.
Psychoanalyze me.
Right now?
Now, you don't know me. We've
Right.
just met, right?
Right.
Now, go ahead.
Psychoanalyze you. Well,
Yeah.
that's a very rich word.
Okay, or analyze me, or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe you're feeling like this subject matter is kind of out of your reach.
Yep.
And you're sort of trying to figure out how to formulate questions for me.
There you go. That's good.
Okay.
That's good. That's good, because I like to have different things on this show. It's a variety show,
Yeah.
and I've done it for so many years that you run out of things to talk about unless you go back into other things that
Well,
you
I'll
have
come back,
talked about.
I'll come back.
You will?
Yeah. Pick
Oh,
a
okay.
subject or anything, I'll come back.
All right. All right. So what's the stigma with being psychoanalyzed or going through?
That's another great question. So the stigma is, all under the umbrella of mental health.
Right.
Our brain is an organ, but, we think of mental illness as something different.
Taboo almost.
Taboo. Or not good, forbidden or a secret. And I think that,
Well, that's because people don't understand it, right? Is that why?
Absolutely. Yep. So I think because of people's perceptions, it affects individuals where they're literally afraid to go into therapy or to reach out and to get help.
Right.
Because they feel, exposed to the possible stigma.
And they're reluctant to tell people that they're in therapy, right?
Yeah, well,
unless you're in the
different.
entertainment business. People in the
Right.
entertainment
Everybody's
business,
different.
they're all
Some
in
people
therapy.
are very open and they like to talk about all that stuff and
Right.
what they talk about in therapy. Everybody's got a different style. And then some people would really prefer not to, or not to even have the other person know. So it's just a range. But I think the point is that however you choose to tell or not tell someone you're in therapy, I think the stigma is what can actually keep people from feeling better and getting better. And they feel trapped because they're so afraid of telling, the truth to someone about what's going on.
Well, that's like going to a marriage counselor, right? That type of thing.
Yeah, any kind of counselor, right. Mm-hmm.
People would have to admit that they have a problem in their marriage to go to a marriage counselor.
And again, it's like anything else, it's that one little step forward that creates that momentum. So picking up the phone, making the appointment, and then the appointment's there and going in, and people say, geez, I wish I had done this sooner.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the fear factor. We're just afraid of just fear. But once we actually carry out the action, we realize it wasn't so intimidating.
Now, when you say picking up the phone, nowadays you always have to have a referral to do anything, right?
That's true. So pick up the phone to maybe call the primary
Your
care
primary
doctor,
care doctor,
or
yeah.
maybe even pick up the phone to talk to a friend who's in therapy and saying, look, who's your therapist?
Right.
What do you think? I'd like to try it, and getting their feedback. So many different ways to do this,
Right. Now, how many patients you see in the course of a week?
Well, I'm part-time, but when I go in, it's a pretty, vigorous day. The way they schedule me, which is my preference, is, basically back to back. I do get like a break for lunch, but I like it.
Did you like it?
I love it.
Now, does it affect you?
Yeah.
Really, when you're dealing with somebody and you're talking to somebody, the empathy part of it, right? It's got to have an impact on you.
When you talk to people about passion, it's funny because people have different viewpoints on what therapy would feel like if they were a therapist. So the people who can't imagine what it's like, oh, I don't know how you do that. You listen all day to people.
Right.
And doesn't that affect you? And I guess on some level, because I'm a human being, it does affect me. But the good news is, I love what I do so much that I'm in the moment doing it, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So that sort of overrides, I think, any other kind of side effect, I think it's good to have a plan, no matter what your job is. When you get home, you've got to have a plan that's healthy to de-stress.
Right.
And stress is such an overused word, but there's got to be a way for people to unplug. And a lot of people actually don't know how to do that.
And how do you do it?
Well, there's different things that I do. I think I'm probably not wanting to talk so much when I get home.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So I'll check in with the family, but I'm really more
reserved
about just staying put and being a little more reserved and quiet. Yeah. And then, there's nothing like, I'm a firm believer in hot shower at night. I like taking a shower at night.
I go in the hot tub at night.
Because I think there's something very therapeutic and cleansing about water.
Water, absolutely.
Exercise, music. I'm a big music person.
Well,
There's
like
so
you said,
many
you play
ways.
the piano, right?
Yeah. So sometimes I like to distract myself for fun, and I make silly little videos for Instagram, which is
really?
kind of like a running joke. Yeah.
Oh,
but that's
I'm
just
going to be looking now.
Well, oh boy.
I'm going to be looking.
With my dog. So I'll do something like that to break it
with
up.
With your dog?
Right.
And what kind of dog do you have?
Golden Doodle.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
How big? How big is it?
Well, she's a medium they call it a midi, I think. So
25 pounds? Oh,
35 pounds. She's at her max. Yep. So she's great.
Now, have people ever come to you after they've lost their dog?
That's a really good question. Not yet.
And the reason I say that is
Yeah.
I lost my dog about a year ago. I had him
Okay.
for 13 years, and it was tough.
Yeah. Well, the loss of a pet can actually open up a lot of other things. So sometimes if that's what gets the person into therapy,
Right.
it's really bigger than that pet dying.
Oh, there's some other outstanding or...
There's things that the pet represented,
Oh,
and the person is overcome with grief,
right.
and they're sort of realizing that the pet meant much more to them in other ways. So they're trying to get over that, and through that process of therapy, they start kind of unearthing all these other things, which is actually very healthy.
Now, how long does a therapy session usually last?
Most of the time, it's 45 minutes to an hour, or 50 minutes is standard.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do people come to you, the same people come more often than once?
I do have people who come regularly, and we have a schedule. This is outpatient work too, so I mean, I used to do hospital work for a lot of years, which was very acute and emergency based. So this is outpatient, but there is kind of a schedule that we agree upon that would be helpful,
right.
Depending on what the problem is or where they are in the process. So it depends.
Right away, I'm thinking of a movie from back in the past, and it was about a therapist, and I can't even think of
Oh
the name
boy,
of
which
the movie.
one?
I can't think of
So
the name.
many.
You must like those kind of movies.
Yeah, well, I love movies, yeah.
Oh, you do?
But sometimes I can't remember. Like, I'll see a movie.
I
and
can't remember this movie, but I'm remembering the woman that was a therapist, and
Was it Barbara Streisand? Was it that one?
no,
No.
it'll come.
Okay, we'll think of it.
Hopefully I'll think of it in
So,
time. But anyway, it's,
yeah.
what's the trends in therapy? What are you? What kind of? Have things changed or evolved over the years in therapy?
I think things are changing. I mean, I'm not a leading expert in what's the latest and greatest in change, but there is definitely a movement towards the science of the brain, how the brain works, the neurochemistry of the brain. So with that, I think, if we look at mental health as being, parallel to physical health in general.
Right.
You see the trend first in physical health, it's all about prevention now and self-care. So,
right.
We're coming out of that disease model, Western medicine, you treat the problem, you treat the disease. And now we're more into, okay, how can I just prevent things from developing altogether? Now, how can I stay healthy and not go to the doctor or get myself into a situation where I'm not feeling good because I'm not taking good care of myself? So I think it's the same thing with mental health. So the focus is on getting what you need before it gets out of control.
But do they, the coverages cover that?
Sure.
They do.
Yeah. Well, it's not that people don't have symptoms, but through the process of getting into the therapist, they're gonna learn about self-care. They're gonna learn, okay, this is why I'm in therapy, because I was feeling depressed. And now that I'm working on my depression, I understand what I didn't do and what needed to happen to prevent me from going further down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the other trend is also, if you go out of that disease model, if you're applying it to mental health, you're looking at, and this is so simple but so powerful, you're focusing always on stabilization, mental health, making people feel better, getting things resolved, challenges, but you're also really focused on, okay, now that I'm in therapy, what is it that I really want, So if we talk about all the time what the problem is, and we talk about what happened in the past,
right.
and we keep regurgitating that, and that's where the brain science comes in.
Right.
Our brain is problem focused. So the question becomes, okay,
Where's the solution?
Where do you want to be? How do you want to feel? How do you want your day to look? How do you want your relationship to look like?
Right.
How do you want to get along with your kids? So that the person is really focused on the end product, the end that they
they're
want.
looking at a result.
Right.
They want a result.
Right.
Right.
Again, it's a simple interaction too. I could say to you, everything that you did wrong right now, right? Or I could point out to you what I thought went well. And do you see the difference? You're going to really hold on to what went well, what I said that I liked.
Right.
And, I've been talking a lot about gratitude lately because it's very trendy to be grateful. And it used to be once a year at Thanksgiving when we were praying. Right? Can everybody go around the table and the turkey
Say what they're grateful for, right?
And say what they're grateful for. And now it's like, oh, we should practice.
We should give. We should give to others. That's what they're saying now. I see that on TV now that you get.
Well, there's a science to that,
Right.
You actually get the person who gives gets more out of giving
than the person
receiver.
receiving.
Right.
So when all these people on the streets are bumming money, we should give them money.
Well, that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. Well, yeah, that's they have that pay it forward. You go to. That happened to me once at Starbucks.
For 23 years, I ran the biggest Toys for Tots event in probably New England at least, maybe even further than that. And yeah, there's great gratitude in giving to kids.
That happened to me at Starbucks. I couldn't believe it. I get my coffee and, well, there's no charge. This person, and they're off in their car. You can't really thank them.
Right.
So I felt funny not being able to thank them. So instead, I bought someone else behind me.
Yeah, there you go.
And there you go. That chain reaction.
I do that in the supermarket.
You do?
I do.
I give my Monopoly tickets away. Does that count?
Monopoly tickets?
Don't they have those games, those tickets, when you cash out? I've lost track. You get those tickets, Are you playing the Monopoly game? Are you playing the...
No.
Yeah, Shaw's.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I always give them...
Really? Yeah.
I like to.
When they win $1 million because of that ticket, how are you going to feel?
Well, it's not that kind of ticket. It's just like glass Tupperware. No, it's not that.
I always fear that. You give the ticket away. I'd rather give them $1 or $2.
No, not that. But I was talking about gratuity. So along the lines of, the giver getting more out of the action than the receiver. But with gratuity, they're actually proving that when you're in a state of gratitude, your brain is in a different place.
Yeah. It's euphoric almost, right?
It creates a different chemical reaction in your brain. It's not just an exercise, to do at Thanksgiving. It's really more about
when the exercise.
Changing your
the
perspective.
exercise in Thanksgiving, you got half the people there you don't talk to normally.
I know.
The rest of the year
That's
don't
why
like.
it's so artificial.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm grateful this is once a year. No.
Yeah.
That'd be terrible. But so that's a good question though.
I saw on the news this morning, and it was surprising to see. I don't know if it's true, but it's on the news. It was on CBS this morning. Dr. Akers from California was talking. He was with some other woman who I don't know, and they were talking about depression and how 1 in 6 people will have a depressed state in their lifetime. That's scary.
I think, again, if we look at the word stigma, we're trying to remove that association. So depression, and I'm going to give my little blurb. I mean, there's some real serious, severe depressions.
Right.
People who become suicidal, it's an emergency, it's a crisis. But when we look at depression in and of itself, it's actually designed to help us. Depression is the knock on the door that something's not right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so
that makes sense.
It's actually a blessing in disguise. It tells us that it's time. What happens with depression is it usually starts way before the depression. It'll start with smaller, bad days, bad weeks, stuff that doesn't feel good. And then it sort of, again, I use the word momentum, it creates a momentum.
Right.
So depression is actually that feeling of hopelessness, that people feel stuck. So then they start really feeling that clinical depression. But it's very treatable. And it's the person who says, I deserve to feel better. I don't want to feel this way. And they're the ones who, they make the appointment, they come in, and they start talking, even if they just talk to a friend about it. You know, there's something about sharing, not a text.
Right. Well, it takes it off you. It takes the weight off you, I
there's
think. Right.
Absolutely. Yep. So I think depression should be seen as an opportunity to feel better.
Right. Right. Well, I like how
Yeah.
you clarify it. How it's.
And a lot of people don't feel they deserve to feel really good. So some people go for years.
Well, that's the Catholic thing.
There's a lot of things in that one. There's a lot of things.
And I went to a Catholic school.
There's also Jewish guilt. Yeah.
Yeah, the Jewish. Yeah.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic school for 8 out of 9 years of my first 9 years.
Mm-hmm. And that also ties into how we were raised, the programming that we got from our parents.
Right.
The shoulds.
Do you know is it different or a lot different or different at all? Someone that grew up in as one person and one kid in the household, or 8 people in the household? Do you notice a difference? And have you ever noticed anything like that?
Well, I happen to be an only child.
You do,
Yeah.
And I happen to be one of 8. Actually,
That's
one of 9.
so funny. So, well, I'll tell you my experience. My experience was I wish that I had had siblings.
Yeah.
I craved, connecting with other people.
Right.
So I had to, get friends and start, getting out of the house in other ways. But I think there's something very, there can be something very connecting about a bigger family with all those kids, because it's like you're all in it together.
Right.
It's like you become your own little unit.
Oh, you have somebody to fight with.
You've got your own football team, the whole thing.
Yeah.
For Thanksgiving, no.
Yeah.
But seriously, I think that you can look at it different ways.
Right. What are the signs of depression? Now that we're talking about depression.
Well, sadness,
Right.
fatigue, there's physical symptoms.
Well, and part of the fatigue is because of sleeplessness, right? Most people that are depressed don't sleep very much.
Or just the opposite.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Overeating, undereating, sleeping too much, not being able to sleep, lethargic, sort of like the why bother. You
Right.
know, if you think of like Eeyore on Winnie the Pooh, everything's an effort. Not getting joy out of things that maybe they used to like. It's a continuum. So it's hard to put that answer in a box.
Right.
But basically you have physical, emotional, mental symptoms. The pain can feel so awful that people turn to behaviors to make them feel better.
Right.
Drinking, drugs, gambling, you name it. Because they're in so much pain.
Well, I can relate to that part of it, the pain part, but I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do on-prescription drugs, and I don't gamble. So what's my problem?
Well, do you have a problem you'd like to talk about? Let's call it a challenge.
A challenge? I don't think so. Just pain. I have a lot of pain. I have a lot of pain.
Well, pain can be depressing.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, it is if you let it be. And I refuse to let it be.
Pain and memory are going to be huge the next 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. Really, a lot of research is going to be, focused on that and treatment.
Also, I think, it was also this morning they were talking about the rate of suicides for teenage girls has spiked. 13 to 15-year-old girls has spiked like off the charts in the last 3 or 4 years. Is there any reason for that?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing social media has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I would guess that. Yeah, that would be a perfect.
This is a really, really hard time for all of us, I think, because of the inundation that we get through the news and through social media and the pressure. And being in and of itself within that age group is a pressure cooker. So you already have this predisposition to not feel that great.
Right.
And to have all of these worries and concerns. With females, stereotypical comparisons, and you think about the Mean Girls movie and how females can sort of amp that up,
Right.
have that
the
reputation.
The cruel
Right.
teen against
Right.
the other teen. You
Right.
know, look at the dress she's wearing. Look at her hair. You know, that type of thing, right?
But I would blame social media for that.
And I believe you're right. It makes sense.
And then that's cutting off, again, that connection to other people.
Well, kids do that anyway, don't they? Teens in the household.
They do. But before we had that, we didn't do that.
Well, what did we do before we had
We
that?
connected more.
With like another teen or
With
other
you're
people.
one of, what, 9 you said, or one of 8?
Yeah.
Imagine, I mean, your family now with iPhones. It'd be different.
Oh yeah, everybody'd be on the phone.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be talking to each other.
No.
It's amazing to see. Even you go to a restaurant, it's sad. You see even a couple, whether it be they're married or dating or whatever, they're sitting across
Yeah.
from each other and they're both on phones.
Yeah. Well, they're also doing, I mean, they have like brain research on, you know, it becomes an addiction in and of itself. When you post things and get likes, there's actually like a dopamine surge in your brain.
Right.
So we're getting that slot machine effect through our phones. And that's why it's like, well, why can't I stop? Well, there's actually a chemical reason in your brain why you're getting addicted and then why it's harder to stop,
Right.
you know?
And supposedly they knew that when they hooked us. on the
Knowledge is
phones.
power. The more we know about this stuff, we have all this knowledge at our fingertips, but we don't have enough knowledge about what's really important and how we can help ourselves and get ourselves out of situations. So I think if more people really, really knew what was going on with this connection,
Right.
with the dopamine, with the phones and whatnot, you know, they
Well, it's
would
like
have
that
an
game they
awareness.
had. What is that game they had? The fruit game there where people were playing ridiculously. I don't know what that. I don't.
I
play
never
it.
played those games.
I neither did I.
Oh, there's one with fruit. Oh, yeah, Candy Crush?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you used to see.
What happened to that?
Oh my God!
What are they playing now?
I don't know. For 2 or 3 years, that you'd see people from 12 to
Yeah.
82 playing,
Yeah.
just ridiculously for hours and
Right.
hours.
Right.
It's strange,
It becomes very addicting.
like the slot machine.
And when you do something over and over again, it becomes a habit.
Right.
And then your brain keeps doing it, wants to do it because it'll gravitate towards what you've always done. Wants the familiar.
They just announced that. I just heard it on the way over here. There are 1.2 billion more cell phones in the world than there are people.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because everybody has 2 or 3 cell
Okay.
phones. You know,
I
you
don't.
You get the last 3 cell phones I have. You know, I must have the last 5 or 6 cell phones.
Yeah.
I have.
Interesting. Wow. Well,
But yet nearly half of the people in the world don't have electricity,
that's so sad.
which means that that doubles.
A lot of things are backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think the beauty of, you know, internet and social media is that you can actually make change on a much larger scale than you could have ever imagined doing before. So I know we're talking about the negative aspects, but
Right.
there's actually an incredible benefit to banding people together, forming organizations, fundraising,
Right.
getting the word out there through the tweet or whatever.
Well, like when the GoFundMe page. Thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
That's great and good
Yep.
for people. But some of the other stuff isn't.
No.
A lot
I
of
know.
the other stuff isn't.
I know. But I think, again, the more we know about how things are affecting us, you know, what we can do about it.
How many phone numbers do you know?
How many phone numbers?
Yeah. How many phone numbers do you remember?
Off the top of my head?
Yeah.
So zip codes don't count?
No.
I don't know.
I know 1 or 2. I know maybe 3.
Now with contacts, right, we don't have that pressure to memorize. We've got it
I
all.
know, but it's awful because I used to know everybody's phone number.
I think I know 5, maybe.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. On a good day.
On a good day.
5. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, you probably knew 45.
Right, because you had to work for it.
Yeah.
You had to create something in your mind to remember it. It wasn't in your contacts because we didn't have a contact because we didn't have a phone.
Yeah. So we
dial
become
phone.
lazy. We become lazy in that
Right.
sense.
I don't like the word lazy.
No?
Nope.
What do you use instead?
There's always a reason. Lazy implies that it's just such a negative word. And I think that for people who are trying not to be lazy, it makes them feel terrible to even.
So that's the ultimate insult. But it is an insult anyway, calling somebody lazy.
Yeah, it was designed to be that way. Words are really powerful. What you say to yourself and what you say out loud, I mean, means it has a lot of power to it.
So you should be careful what you say to people, right?
Well, think about, lazy. If you're calling yourself lazy, you're going to start.
Well, most people I don't think call themselves lazy.
You'd be surprised
really?
To yourself. I was so lazy. Or they'll say it out loud. They'll say it to themselves. I'm so stupid. Why did I do it that way?
Really?
Well, then you start believing that. And when you start believing that, then you start doing things to sort of make that continue to be true. And you're not even aware of it.
Oh, because you believe it.
Right.
But isn't it more because somebody said it to you?
Well, you have to believe it to think it's true. You have to think it's true to believe it.
But if it comes from...
That's where that saying goes, if I say something to you, it doesn't affect you because you know it's not true about you.
Right. But if a parent says it to a kid, the kid's more likely going to believe it.
Well, I mean, the big piece is our childhood. Our childhood forms us as much as we don't want that to be, or as much as we're proud of that. It is true. So by age 7, we're kind of all mapped out.
Right.
And then we
That's when my father died, by the way.
I know, you told me that.
When I was 7 years old.
I thought about that.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. But I was already mapped out before he died. Then.
You were already mapped out.
I was already set.
But it doesn't mean you can't change. It's just that sort of the blueprint was formed about your understanding about how, in basic terms, the world works, your feelings about yourself, your parents.
Really?
Yeah.
At 7?
Yeah. Around 7, sure. Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. So then what you believe, you continue to think and do and feel because it all goes back to that you believe that. So in other words, if someone really thinks that they're stupid, say they call themselves stupid, right? That was so stupid. I'm so stupid. So there's a part of them that believes that. So if I had that person as a client, I'd want to explore, I call it the legs on that. Where that came from. That came from somewhere.
And it probably came from somebody else.
Right. Well, that's sure. We're not born like that.
No.
No.
You're not born looking in the mirror saying, hey, I'm stupid.
Nope.
No, that's why
you
I said
absorb
somebody
it.
calls
you
them.
You feel it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gave that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And I would think in many cases it's a sibling or a parent.
Absolutely. Right.
Probably in most cases.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is that this is all stuff that can be treated, Can
it be reversed?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
it's
if
not
you
that
keep telling a
complicated.
person that they're not stupid, that will take away the fact that they think they are stupid.
No. I mean, stupid is sort of like lazy. It's a terrible, negative, non-descriptive word. What is stupid? I mean, who defines stupid?
Right.
Right? So if you're working with someone and they feel like they are stupid, you'd want to know where that came from, why they believed it, what that meant to them, how they defined stupid. So it's almost like being a mind detective and challenging a belief that is not helping that person. It's not friendly to call yourself that, right? So then you would sort of...
So like you said, you're a detective. You're looking, you're searching for it, right?
Right.
Now when they come into your office, do you put them on a bed or a couch or they sit across from you?
They just sit down. They just sit down. Yeah.
Now, do you sit behind the desk or you sit...
No, I don't like that.
That would be bad, I would think.
Well, I don't want to say bad. Some people have their preferences.
I think it would be bad.
But
because it puts that person superior.
It does put that
and
barrier.
I know that. Being in sales, I know that you don't allow
see,
that.
Okay.
When I would go to see a client and they were behind a desk, I would go around the desk.
Well, it's also a feng shui thing, and it also goes back to the handshake, right? If you can't see someone's hands,
Right. You don't trust them.
We don't trust them because we don't know what they have. We think that they're sneaky.
Right.
And the handshake is like, hey, I don't have anything.
Right.
So behind the desk, sure, it's the same thing.
Well, again, I was watching another thing today, and it sounds like I watch a lot of TV, but I don't. And I end up seeing this one of the woman shows on TV. I don't know what it is.
The women?
A whole bunch of women around the table. There.
Oh, The View?
I don't know, one of those
Okay.
shows.
I don't watch a lot of those shows.
And I never watch them. I just happened to catch part of it today. And they were talking about how it's getting to the point where people are saying that they shouldn't shake hands anymore. They should do away with hugging, okay, but handshake?
Why?
Oh, because that's invading one's realm.
Well, but handshake is a reciprocal. If I put my hand out and you don't want to shake my hand.
Right.
But it is a choice.
Right, you would think.
Yeah.
But one of the girls on the show is Japanese, and she said, oh, in our culture, they don't shake hands.
You have to be very respectful, too, of different cultures.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Lack of eye contact can be very cultural. So you're wondering why someone's not looking at you. It's because that's their culture. It's disrespectful to look someone in the eye.
Which would get me in a lot of trouble, because I always look people right in the eye. Always.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a lot of cultures, that's fine,
Well, in the American culture, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I don't trust a person that doesn't look at me. If I'm looking at them and they're looking away.
Right.
Either they're not interested,
Right.
or they're afraid of something, or they're lying about something. Something ain't right.
Yep, you got it. So the trends are, fabulous that they're doing now for treatment. It's not just about fixing what's wrong or fixing that depression. It's much more comprehensive and much more focused on getting what you want out of life, feeling how you want to feel, that kind of thing.
Now, what is the disease model? What is that?
Well, the disease model was a way to highlight sort of where we were and still are, but there's a lot of progress with medicine in general. Treating something that's a problem, giving a medication or pill to fix something, versus the preventative strategies that would go into that so that it doesn't even happen in the first place. So that's my understanding of, when I think of disease model, I think of, okay, in the business to treat the disease versus in the industry to prevent or to promote health. There's a difference too between preventing and then promoting. I can tell you what it would take for you to prevent high blood pressure, right? I'm gonna tell you. Sure, all that stuff that we know, right? Your weight, your eating, right?
Yeah.
But how about if I wanted to promote your total wellness that would also influence your blood pressure? I'm going to tell you to also maybe add in some meditation, to add in other therapeutic things that are good for you and healthy, and that's going to help your blood pressure.
Now, can you subscribe?
And your general health.
Can you prescribe medication?
No, I'm not a doctor. Nope. That would be psychiatrist,
Right.
MD, primary care, DO, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant, but not me.
Now, what's no pain, no gain? What's that all about?
Oh, that's a really good one. I just did a little blog on that, and I've always felt this way, and I've tested it. So if we think about the fact that when we want to make a change, we're doing it because we're feeling uncomfortable, right? So when we start making that change, there's certain things that we have to do. And that can be really uncomfortable. And the whole idea...
Well, to make the change is uncomfortable.
So the whole idea is that pushing through and getting to that next level, and whether it's to feel better, you're going to have to, or have a better life, you're going to have to break the mold of what you've always done. So we get comfortable sometimes in our own.
Well, there you go, the habit, right?
That's
something
right.
Something you do for 30
Right.
days is a habit.
So someone doesn't really feel that great mentally, or they are slightly depressed. They're not, emergency depressed where they got to go to the hospital,
Right.
but they're just sort of, stuff isn't right. They're gonna, if they can stay in that state for quite some time. When they decide that they want to go into therapy, they want to feel better, then they're going to have to push through, and they're going to have to really explore what is going on to feed that depression. And that means making changes. And changes can be painful and difficult. But through that process, they are going to heal. It's kind of like the only way.
Their only way is to push through, right?
To push through.
All right, courage versus vulnerability.
Yep. So vulnerability is a really, hot word right now. Vulnerability goes with the no pain, no gain, right? So vulnerability is it's a vulnerable word. Vulnerable, you think weak. But if we can think of vulnerability as uncomfortable emotions, and we think of uncomfortable emotions as emotions that we really don't like feeling, or that we don't want to have. So vulnerability is facing those emotions and sitting with them, okay, which makes us feel vulnerable. That old expression, big boys don't cry.
Right.
That was kind of ingrained into the generations.
Right. My generation,
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
Right. So why was that?
Why was it? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Because, somewhere along the line, men were, to be a man,
More
you weren't
masculine,
supposed to cry.
Right.
Because crying meant you
It was
lost
weakness.
control, that you were weak.
You were weak.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and coming from a big family, you cried, you got whacked.
Well, that's a whole other subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you learned through, spanking.
But I didn't get whacked from my father. My father was dead.
Right.
And I just got whacked from my older
But the
brother
message
or whatever.
The message got ingrained. Okay? Crying and showing emotion, which is a very normal, natural emotion, which actually more people should express, you actually got physically punished for that. So you, which makes sense, what you told me earlier, you are uncomfortable.
All right, go ahead.
And
Say it. You
feel
can say
vulnerable.
It. You can say it.
Feel vulnerable with, emotions that have to do with sadness and.
Well, when I ever heard about
Crying.
finding out that we know
Yeah.
each other indirectly.
But doesn't it make sense about the funerals? Right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to emote.
Because I told Elizabeth that I don't go to funerals. I don't like funerals. They bother me. And I know why they bother me. Because I stood for 2 days at my father's funeral when I was 7 years old.
And you don't want to feel that way again.
That too.
And so you've decided that feeling that emotion is
Weak?
weak, overwhelming. You've pushed it down.
No, I don't think it's weak. I just don't like it.
But why don't you like it?
Because I just don't like to be sad.
Because it's uncomfortable. So what if I told you that because you don't like it doesn't mean it goes away?
Oh, I know it doesn't go away.
So that when people, and that's how depression can kind of get settled in, when people stuff down their emotions.
Right.
And that's where you get some of your addictions. Sometimes people just don't want to feel that pain, whatever it is. It could even be anger. So they end up doing other things to kind of self-soothe them.
Well, I do positive things to not
And
think
that's
of it.
great. But I'm always advocating for the purging of emotion. I mean, there's a time to distract from it, and then there's a time to sort of, it's like cleaning out a wound. You have a cut, got to clean it out. And that's what sadness is. It's a very normal, natural response your body has to certain feelings. People cry when they're laughing too hard. So we can look at crying as a very intense emotion, a very intense reaction to an emotion. Nothing to be ashamed or afraid of. But if that's how you've been programmed, right, then you're gonna want to stuff it right back
Well,
down.
when you have someone, your loved one that dies, doesn't it bother you when you think of that person?
Yes. But bother is probably the wrong word.
Or doesn't it
Bother
sadden
you.
you?
Right. Sadden doesn't have to be bother, right? And that's where they get the term bittersweet, right? We remember people who we love who have died, and we remember so many wonderful things about them, and then we miss them at the same time. So it's having both of those emotions.
Right.
Totally wonderful in its own way. I mean, it's not shameful, it's natural. But when we decide what to call it, if we're going to call it something negative, and we're going to judge it, and we're going to put, a stigma
stamp on it. Yeah. Yeah.
then we're going to have these inner conflicts. But it's still there. We're just
Oh, yeah, it still bothers me today when I think about my dad. Now, tell me something. When I was going to, because we've never met before, and I told you I wanted to have something. I like to try different things on my show, and I thought this was a good topic.
It's a great topic.
I had thought about the recent shootings. These kids going crazy. Well, whatever they are going. Like this kid, I don't know where it was, but he went in some church or something and just started shooting people just the other day. These are depressed kids, right? For the most part.
There's a variety of reasons that go into every situation, every individual who does something like this.
But some of them,
they're not well.
they're not well.
They're not well. They have access to the weapons. They're isolated. There's usually a level of isolation. They have connection to social media and internet to sort of feed that desire to do that heinous, horrible thing.
Right.
Okay. This is a great, I'm getting goosebumps. Uh-oh, it's going to be good. So this reminds me of...
When you get goosebumps, it's going to be good, huh?
Because I'm thinking about something that's bigger picture.
Oh, go ahead.
If we take these individuals who have done these horrible things, right? And we look at it as they're still, they're growing up still in our society. They're still a human being. What could we have done differently to
Well, first of all, you have to
prevent
know
this?
what
Right.
if the problem that that person had.
So what was the big shooting that was in Connecticut?
That was the kid, the young guy. His mother let him. He got him the guns, and he was out shooting semi-automatic.
So
weapons.
here's how it works, right? If we only focus on the isolation of that one individual and the pathology of it, I think the point is, how could we have prevented that with that one person? But it's really more of a society issue, a challenge. So for example, with the mass shooting in Connecticut, one of the moms who lost her son, and I forgot the name of the organization, I actually read about it in the journal a while back, but she, and this happens a lot when they have tragedy and loss, they end up doing something really incredible to deal with the grief. So she started an organization that focuses on teaching kids in schools emotional intelligence, so that I'm going to be knowing what to look for if I see one of my classmates extra quiet or not getting along or something's not quite right.
Yep.
So it's about teaching the other individuals to know what to do, how to reach out, how to help that person too. It's an incredible
But
idea.
in the case of Connecticut, since you mentioned it, it was none of those kids. It was some crazy.
Oh, I know, but he had gone to that school.
Yeah, years earlier, right?
He had gone there. Yep.
And sadly, there were a few people that who had a few of the parents from that have committed suicide as a result of that years later.
I know.
And that's again goes to the depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just can't get over the sorrow of the tragedy of losing their kid. I mean, that's got to be beyond belief to deal with something like that.
It is. You know, we all have something. That's one of the most horrible, awful losses anyone can imagine. But I feel like if we look at everybody, everybody's got something. So it's how do we go on with our lives having that something, you know? There's got to be a way to find that new purpose somehow. And life doesn't have to be, you know, over because of that disability or loss or condition, you know, that person has to live with for the rest of their lives. So it's coming up. It's actually it's a spiritual connection. I think that would make the difference.
I know there are other parents from that group that have gone on, like you said, the bigger and better things. Mm-hmm. And you know, there's one father runs some national.
Well, that's a nice segue, because I think on one of those cards, another thing that I try to work with clients on is getting in touch with that life purpose. Everybody's born with things that they're good at, talents, skills.
Right.
Every single person.
And everybody has a different talent or ability.
Right. So when we say, for example, we're taking the person with that depression, who can't seem to get out of that funk, and they have the courage to make that appointment. They're going to start therapy, and through discussing their depression and its origins, its roots from how they grew up or whatnot, and getting out of that rabbit hole of the depression. So here they are, now they're out of it, right? But then it's like, okay, where do we go from here? I think when people really can figure out their passion, what they should do, what their purpose is, what feels good, they're going to hook into that, and it's going to carry them through. And it's probably going to help through many storms over the years. That we should all know, you know, what we're good at, what we can do well, and tap into that, you know, what brings us joy. I always say, what would you do all day if you didn't get paid?
Good point, yeah.
And that's that passion, that's that connection. And there's no judgment. I mean, some people, it doesn't have to be a glamorous thing. It doesn't have to be brilliant.
Right.
You know, but it's what you love to do. So
like this, you're doing the show.
Yeah,
I do
well,
this,
that's
I
what
don't
you've been
get
doing
paid.
for 27 years.
27
There's a reason.
Years,
and you don't get paid, see?
It'll be 28 this month, by the way, May 27th.
Well,
May 29th, it'll be 28 years. It'll be my 28th year.
And that's why, again, going out of that disease model, when you're treating someone, you know, you want to look at their life in a comprehensive way. And you want to say, okay, now we have you feeling less depressed, you're feeling better, but where are we going from here? What is it that would feel good moving forward in your life? What else can we do? You know? And
you got to find out the feel-good thing.
Yeah, well, that's more like that life.
Stay at that level, right?
Life coaching, but I think that's a key. And again, you could be home, not working, taking care of the kids, but there's so much purpose and wonderful things in doing that.
Exactly.
And then maybe through that process of therapy and coaching, the person realizes, you know what? When my kids are this age, I'd like to plan on doing this, because I actually wanting to do more than just stay home with my kids. And they don't know what it is, and they find that out through working with somebody, a therapist. What do you think?
Well, I like it. I like it. I like it. I mean, I'm not my therapy I never thought about before, but that's why I brought you on the show. And then I end up finding out I kind of know you. I don't know you, but I know your family. Your in-law family, and it was interesting. I thought of that when I first saw your name, and I saw the three names, you know, your first, last, and your married name. I only saw your first and last name first, and I don't know where I saw it, the whole, you know, your marriage name, Greenburg.
Yeah, well, I'm Greenburg everywhere, but I think I put my middle name on Facebook.
Right, that's where I saw it, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Elizabeth Cashman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Greenburg.
my grandmother's name. Yeah. That's
How long have you been married?
2002. What's that?
Really?
17 years.
You've been married you've been married to
Isn't that
David
right?
for 17 years?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Isn't that 17?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I know.
And folks, I found out that a good friend of mine who coached with me for 5 years passed on and was your husband's uncle. And I knew David when he was a young guy.
Yeah. That was so cool when you just everything clicked in for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew his father. I knew.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot about him. In fact, he was my mother's doctor. He's a podiatrist.
So wrapping up on that topic, because you had brought up no pain, no gain, and vulnerability, having that courage to face the music and break through and take that first step is just so important and does create that domino effect. You know, you go in and you're like, geez, this wasn't so bad.
Right.
I feel better. I feel sort of hopeful. Hope is a huge, huge thing too. People lose hope.
Yep.
You know, why bother? This is hopeless. It's not going to change. And then they start working with a professional and they realize that, wow, there is hope, you know? And that creates more momentum. And then they go back for follow-up appointments and they talk about, I don't know, how they got that way. What keeps them that way.
I was talking to someone recently, someone I know well, and he was talking about how he has this thing about people following him, or he's in Florida or something, and people down there are causing him problems, or he's in Europe.
Does he see them?
Does he? No.
He's just suspicious.
Right. He thinks that somebody is causing him problems when he's
paranoid.
Like, yes. And I don't get it. And I say to him, he's saying, well, they called the clerk at the hotel and did this or did that. I said, first of all, there's no clerk in the world in any hotel that's going to give them information about.
So it's not just that they might. He's saying that they actually did.
Right.
So that would be a delusion.
Okay. And
A thought disorder.
A what?
Thought
disorder? And how does that get rectified?
Medication.
Oh, really?
Usually. Yeah. Well, it has to be evaluated because you want to look at things like schizophrenia or, just having a delusional disorder. But there's certain things that there's no way around it. You've got to be on special medication.
Right.
And you know what? It's when it works and comes together, it's such a relief for people because it's torture.
I can imagine if you're worried about when you're traveling somewhere and you're worried about someone that you don't like is...
And we have to take away the stigma because that person's brain isn't working right.
Right.
And they could have had a heart condition and we're more accepting. But we have to look at the brain as it's an organ. There's certain things that can go wrong and not be ashamed about it.
Well, there's nothing to be ashamed about spending an hour with Bob because you just did.
Oh, good. It's already over.
It's over.
Oh, great.
You made it. You made it. You spent an hour with Bob.